Ravi and his wife Mira had been waiting for this day for months. They had saved money, worked long hours, and finally bought a small cabin near the lake. It was quiet, surrounded by tall pine trees, and far away from the noise of the city. For them, the cabin was not just a place to rest, but a dream come true. The first time they visited the cabin, Ravi noticed the wooden gate at the entrance. It was old, faded, and half broken. When he tried to close it, the wood creaked and nearly fell from the hinges. Mira laughed and said the gate had seen better days. They both agreed that the gate was the first thing they should change. One Saturday morning, Ravi bought new wood, paint, and tools. Mira helped him measure and cut while humming softly. The two of them worked side by side, enjoying the simple task. By afternoon, the new gate was ready. It was strong, polished, and painted in a deep brown color. Ravi added a small carving of a tree in the middle, making it feel warm and welcoming. When the gate was fixed, they both stood back and admired it. For them, the gate was a sign of new beginnings. They smiled, proud of their small but meaningful work. What they did not know was that their neighbor across the road was watching them with sharp eyes. Her name was Karen. She was known around the neighborhood for her constant complaints. She did not like when people parked too close to her driveway, she did not like when children played outside too loudly, and she especially did not like when someone made changes without asking her first. Karen believed that she was the silent leader of the area. She was part of the local homeowner group, and she felt she had the right to decide what others should or should not do. When she saw Ravi and Mira changing the cabin gate, her face grew tight with disapproval. She muttered to herself that they had no right to make such changes without permission. By evening, Ravi and Mira sat on their porch with cups of tea, enjoying the cool air. The sun was setting behind the trees, and everything felt peaceful. Just then, a loud knock came at the gate. It was Karen, standing tall with her hands on her hips. "Who gave you permission to change this gate?" she demanded. Ravi looked at her with calm eyes and said, "It is our gate. It was broken, so we fixed it." Karen's voice grew sharper. "This area has rules. You cannot just change things. You should have asked first. This is not how things are done here." Mira spoke politely, "We only wanted to repair it. The old gate was falling apart. We did not think it would be a problem." But Karen was not satisfied. She raised her chin and said, "I will report this. People cannot come here and do as they please. I know the right people, and I will make sure you learn the rules." Without waiting for their reply, she turned and walked away quickly. Ravi and Mira looked at each other, puzzled and slightly amused. They had done nothing wrong, but they could see Karen was the type who enjoyed making trouble. The next morning, they heard the sound of a siren coming down the road. A police car stopped in front of their cabin. Two officers stepped out, looking around carefully. Karen came running from her porch, pointing toward Ravi and Mira's new gate. "That is the couple," she said loudly. "They broke the rules. They built this gate without permission. You must take action." The officers looked at her with raised brows, then turned to Ravi and Mira, who stood calmly near the porch. The air grew tense as the neighbors watched from their windows. Karen crossed her arms, certain she had won this battle. But Karen did not know who Ravi and Mira really were. The two officers stood near the cabin gate, their eyes moving between Karen and the couple. The new gate looked neat and harmless, strong enough to last many years. One of the officers touched the wood, nodded, and then turned to Ravi and Mira. "Good morning," the officer said in a calm voice. We received a call about some disturbance. Can you explain what happened here? Ravi answered politely. Good morning, officer. We bought this cabin a few weeks ago. The gate was broken, so we replaced it with a new one. That is all. Mira added softly, we did not mean to upset anyone. We only wanted to make the place safe. Karen quickly stepped forward, pointing at the gate with her finger. This is against the rules. They cannot just change things in this community. There are standards. They should have come to me first. I am part of the homeowner group. This is not allowed. The officers exchanged looks. One of them asked, Ma'am, do you have any written rule or complaint from the association that says they cannot fix their own gate? Karen blinked. Her voice grew sharper. I do not need paper. Everyone here knows. I have lived here for years. We cannot let strangers do whatever they like. If you let this pass, next time they will paint the cabin in bright colors or invite noisy people. Her words carried a sense of control, but her face showed frustration. She wanted the officers to act quickly. She wanted to prove she had power. The taller officer took out a small notebook. We need to make sure this is an official matter. If this is only a disagreement, we cannot treat it as an emergency. Karen's face turned red. I called 911. That should be enough. They broke the rules. Arrest them. The other officer shook his head slowly. Ma'am, 911 is for emergencies. A broken rule about a gate is not a reason for calling. You must use the community office for such issues, not the emergency line. This is a misuse of service. For the first time, Karen's confidence slipped. She opened her mouth to argue but no words came. The neighbors peeking from their windows whispered among themselves. Some even chuckled softly, enjoying the scene. Ravi remained calm. He did not raise his voice, nor did Mira. They simply stood and let the truth speak for itself. Their peaceful manner made the officers look at them with respect. One of the officers turned to Karen again. Do you wish to file an official written complaint through the homeowner group? If so, we can leave you with the papers. But as far as the law is concerned, this couple has done nothing wrong. Karen's hands trembled. She wanted to maintain her image, but the situation had already slipped from her grip. The officers were not supporting her. The neighbors were watching. And the couple she thought she could scare looked completely unbothered. At last she muttered, Yes, give me the papers. I will file a complaint. The taller officer pulled out a form and handed it to her. Here you go. Please remember, the emergency number is not for personal disputes. If it happens again, there may be a penalty. Karen's face stiffened. She snatched the paper and marched back toward her porch. The sound of her shoes on the gravel was sharp and angry. When she was gone, the officers turned to Ravi and Mira once more. We are sorry for the trouble. You two seem like peaceful people. You should not worry about this. Ravi nodded politely. Thank you for coming. We understand you only followed the call. We will continue to keep everything safe and in order. Mira smiled kindly. We only want to live quietly. This cabin is special to us. The officers gave a small smile, then walked back to their car. Soon the siren faded down the road. Ravi and Mira sat back on their porch, cups of tea still warm in their hands. The evening had returned to its calm state, but the air carried a strange weight. Mira looked at Ravi. She will not stop here. She is the type who wants control. What do we do? Ravi's eyes grew thoughtful. We do nothing for now. Let her show her true self. People like her reveal their own mistakes. But when the time comes, she will learn who we are. Across the road, Karen stood behind her curtains, watching them with narrow eyes. She thought she had been embarrassed today, but she promised herself she would not lose again. She did not yet know that Ravi and Mira carried a story far greater than she could imagine. The next few days at the cabin passed peacefully. Ravi and Mira spent their mornings walking by the lake, their afternoons planting small flowers near the porch, and their evenings watching the golden light fade through the trees. The new gate stood strong and beautiful, greeting them each time they came in or out. But peace never lasted long with Karen nearby. She could not stop thinking about the officer's words. She felt humiliated that they had not taken her side. Every time she saw the neat wooden gate across the road, her jaw tightened. She told herself she had to find a way to regain her control. One afternoon, Karen gathered two other neighbors, Mr. Lee and Mrs. Brown, in her backyard. Both were kind and polite people who had never caused trouble. Still, Karen spoke in a firm voice as if she were their leader. You both saw what they did, she said, pointing toward Ravi and Mira's cabin. They came here and built that gate without permission. If they continue like this, they will break more rules. We must stop them before it is too late. Mr. Lee frowned. But the gate looks fine. It is better than the old one. I do not see any harm. Mrs. Brown nodded. Yes, they are quiet people. They wave when they pass. I do not think they mean trouble. Karen's eyes flashed. You are being fooled by their smiles. I know their type. Strangers who think they can buy a place and do anything they want. I have lived here for 20 years. I will not let them change this neighborhood. The two neighbors exchanged uneasy looks. They did not agree, but they also did not want to argue with Karen. After all, everyone knew how stubborn she was. While Karen made her plans, Ravi and Mira continued their simple life. They had not told anyone in the neighborhood who they really were. To the people around them, they seemed like an ordinary couple enjoying a quiet retreat. But behind their calm smiles, there was a story few could guess. Ravi had once worked in a high government office. He had been part of important decisions that affected the whole country. Mira, on the other hand, had been active in a large charity organization, managing programs that helped thousands of families. They were respected in circles that most people never reached. They had chosen to keep their lives private in the new cabin. They wanted peace, not recognition. But Karen's behavior was slowly forcing their hidden side to surface. One morning, a black car with tinted windows arrived at the cabin. A man in a suit stepped out, carrying a folder. He greeted Ravi with a bow and handed him some documents to sign. Karen, who was watering her plants at that moment, froze. She watched the scene with wide eyes. The man looked official, serious, and respectful. He stood waiting as Ravi checked the papers with care before signing. Mira noticed Karen staring but said nothing. She only smiled faintly and went back inside. That evening, Karen could not stop herself from knocking at Mrs. Brown's door. Did you see that car at their cabin? She asked breathlessly. A black car, with a man in a suit. Something strange is going on. They are not what they seem. Mrs. Brown, who had also noticed the car, shrugged. Maybe they are important people. It is not our business. But Karen's mind was restless. Important people moving into her neighborhood without her knowing? That thought made her uneasy. She wanted control, but control seemed to be slipping through her fingers. Meanwhile, Ravi and Mira sat by the fire in their cabin, sipping tea. The day had been long, and the papers Ravi signed carried weight that could not be ignored. Mira looked at him quietly. "How long can we stay hidden? Sooner or later, someone will learn." Ravi's face remained calm. "Let them learn. We are not doing harm. If they find out, it will only change how they see us, not who we are." From across the road, Karen watched their cabin windows glowing with warm light. She clenched her fists. She felt certain she had discovered a mystery, but she did not yet know that her curiosity would soon backfire. For now, the gate stood as a silent guard, holding more secrets than Karen could ever imagine. The black car's visit left the neighborhood buzzing with whispers. By the next morning, almost everyone had heard about it. Some thought Ravi might be a businessman with hidden wealth. Others guessed Mira came from an influential family. Nobody knew the truth, but the mystery made their presence more interesting. Karen, however, did not see it as interesting. She saw it as a threat. For years, she had enjoyed being the loudest voice in the area. Whenever there was a community meeting, she spoke the longest. Whenever someone suggested a new idea, she was the first to object. Many did not like her ways, but few challenged her. Now she feared that this quiet couple could steal the attention she believed belonged to her. That evening, Karen stood in her living room pacing back and forth. She kept replaying the scene of the man in the suit handing Ravi the folder. It bothered her deeply. "They are hiding something," she muttered to herself. "I will find out what it is." On the other side of the road, life in the cabin remained calm. Ravi chopped wood for the fireplace while Mira cooked a simple meal. The smell of fresh bread and stew filled the cabin, making it warm and inviting. To them, these small moments were priceless. They had spent years surrounded by stress and responsibility. Now they wanted nothing more than peace. But peace was exactly what Karen would not allow. The next morning, she decided to visit the homeowner office. She walked in with her head held high and told the staff she wanted to see the files of the new couple. "I need to check if their documents are complete," she said. The clerk looked puzzled. "Ma'am, unless you are on the board, you cannot access private files. That information is confidential." Karen's face stiffened. "I am a member of this community. I have the right to know who my neighbors are." The clerk shook his head politely. "We can assure you their papers are correct. That is all we can say." Karen left the office frustrated. The denial only fueled her suspicion. She returned home and decided she would watch them even closer. Meanwhile, more neighbors began to notice something unusual. One afternoon, two young men in neat uniforms came to the cabin to deliver supplies. They carried themselves with discipline and respect. They greeted Ravi and Mira as if addressing someone important. Mrs. Brown, who was walking her dog, saw the exchange. Later she told Mr. Lee, "I think Ravi and Mira are not ordinary. The way those men behaved, it felt like they were standing in front of someone of high rank." Mr. Lee nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, I have noticed too. They are always calm, always polite. They never argue, never gossip. People like that usually have strong backgrounds." The mystery was spreading. Karen, however, grew more restless. That evening, she sat on her porch with a notebook, scribbling down every detail she observed. Black car at 10 in the morning. Delivery men at 3 in the afternoon. Strange papers signed. Smiles too calm. "Yes, something is going on," she whispered. but while Karen was busy with her notes, something unexpected happened. A group of children from the neighborhood ran past her yard, laughing. They stopped at Ravi and Mira's gate, looking curious. Instead of turning them away, Mira opened the gate with a warm smile and gave them small cookies she had baked. The children cheered and thanked her. The parents, hearing about it later, began to see Ravi and Mira in a new light. They were not distant or secretive, as Karen suggested. They were kind and generous. Slowly, the trust of the neighbors started shifting away from Karen's loud warnings toward the couple's quiet goodness. One night, as Ravi and Mira sat under the stars, Mira spoke softly. "The neighbors are beginning to notice things. How much longer can we keep our past hidden?" Ravi looked up at the sky, his face calm. "We are not hiding, Mira. We are simply living quietly. If the truth comes, we will face it with the same peace. Let others decide how they see us." But across the road, Karen was not ready to let go. She told herself that if nobody else would act, she would dig deeper on her own. She had no idea that her search would soon put her face to face with a truth she was not prepared for. The gate stood silently in the night, its carved tree glowing faintly under the moonlight. It was more than wood and paint now. It had become a line between ordinary gossip and hidden power, a line Karen was desperate to cross. The moon was high when Karen sat at her desk, flipping through the pages of her notebook. She had written every detail she could gather about Ravi and Mira. Times, visitors, deliveries, even the color of the car that stopped at their gate. To her, these notes were proof that the couple was hiding something. The next morning, Karen decided to act. She picked up her phone and called one of her old friends, Martin, who worked at the town office. She spoke in her usual firm tone. "Martin, I need information on a couple who just moved near the lake. Their names are Ravi and Mira. Check if you can find anything unusual." Martin sighed. "Karen, you know I cannot share personal records. That is private." Karen pressed on. "I am not asking for gossip. I am trying to protect my neighborhood. Something about them is not right. Please, just check quietly." Martin paused, then replied carefully, "All I can say is, their names are not ordinary in our system. That is all I will tell you." The line went silent. Karen's heart skipped. Not ordinary? She tapped her fingers on the desk, her suspicion growing stronger. Across the road, life at the cabin carried its steady rhythm. Mira was hanging fresh laundry in the sun, humming a soft tune. Ravi was in the yard fixing the small wooden bench they had bought at the market. Their lives looked simple from the outside, yet inside their cabin were reminders of another world: documents, sealed envelopes, and calls from people who spoke with deep respect. That afternoon, another black car arrived. This time 2 men stepped out. They greeted Ravi with a salute before handing him a sealed briefcase. Karen, watching from behind her curtains, felt her knees weaken. A salute? Her suspicion was no longer just suspicion. Something important was happening inside that cabin. She rushed outside to catch Mrs. Brown, who was returning from the store. "Did you see that? Men in suits saluting him. I told you they are not ordinary. They are hiding something big." Mrs. Brown gave a patient smile. "Karen, maybe they are simply important people who want peace. Why not leave them be?" Karen shook her head fiercely. "Peace? Important people do not hide in cabins unless they are planning something. I must find out." That night, Karen could not sleep. She kept looking at the glowing cabin windows across the road. Her curiosity had grown into obsession. She decided she would walk closer, just to see if she could hear or notice anything. Moving quietly along the gravel, she reached the edge of Ravi and Mira's yard. She stood behind the tall bushes, her eyes fixed on the cabin. Inside, she saw Ravi speaking on the phone, his face serious. She could not hear the words, but the way he carried himself gave her chills. It was the posture of someone who commanded respect. Suddenly, a voice startled her. "Good evening, Karen." She turned quickly. It was Mira, holding a small lantern. Her gentle smile lit the darkness. "Why are you standing here in the cold night?" Karen stuttered, trying to hide her shock. "I was just walking. Getting fresh air." Mira tilted her head slightly. "So near our yard? You could have walked on the main road." Karen forced a laugh. "I like this side better. The trees are calming." Mira did not press further. She simply nodded and said, "Be careful. The ground here is uneven. You could fall." Then she turned and walked back inside. Karen stood frozen, her heart pounding. For the first time, she felt like the one being watched instead of the one doing the watching. The following day, the neighborhood gathered for a small meeting about road repairs. Karen, as usual, tried to dominate the discussion. But something strange happened. Instead of listening to her, the neighbors kept glancing toward Ravi and Mira, who had quietly joined the gathering. They sat calmly, speaking only when asked, yet their words carried weight. Even Mr. Lee, who usually supported Karen, leaned closer to hear Ravi's opinion. Karen felt invisible. The control she had held for years was slipping away, and it frightened her. Later that evening, as she sat alone, her notebook on the table, she whispered to herself, "Who are you really, Ravi and Mira? Why here? Why now?" She did not know that the answer to her questions was closer than she thought, and soon, the truth would no longer remain behind closed doors. The neighborhood meeting had changed something in Karen's world. For the first time, she was no longer the loudest or most respected voice. Ravi's calm tone, steady words, and polite manner had caught the attention of the others. People listened to him, not because he demanded it, but because his presence carried weight. Karen returned home after the meeting with her head spinning. She threw her notebook on the table and muttered, "This cannot be happening. They are stealing my place. I have kept this neighborhood in order for years. Who gave them the right to take it from me?" Across the road, Ravi and Mira sat in their warm cabin, quietly sipping tea. They did not speak of the meeting much. To them, it was just another moment of community life. But Ravi noticed something in Mira's eyes. "You are worried," he said softly. Mira nodded. "It is not just Karen anymore. The others are starting to guess. They notice the cars, the visitors, the respect. Soon, someone will ask questions we cannot ignore." Ravi leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "We did not come here to hide in fear. If the truth comes, we will face it. But we will not reveal more than what is needed." The next day, Karen's chance arrived sooner than anyone expected. Another car drove up to the cabin, this time larger and darker than the others. Out stepped a man in a decorated uniform, his chest full of medals. He walked with dignity and respect, as though the earth itself bowed to his steps. Karen, watering her plants once again, nearly dropped her jug when she saw him. She could not believe her eyes. The man shook Ravi's hand firmly and spoke with the kind of voice reserved for people of high rank. "Sir," he said clearly, "we are grateful for your service. Even here, your wisdom is needed. The committee awaits your guidance. Karen's jaw dropped. Service. Committee. She crouched low behind her flowers, trying to hear more. Mira stood by Ravi's side, her calm smile never fading. She spoke gently to the visitor. Please keep your voices low. We came here for peace, not attention. The man nodded respectfully. Of course, madam. Forgive me. We will be discreet. Karen could barely breathe. She stumbled back into her house, her mind racing. Ravi was not just an ordinary man. He was someone important, someone with authority beyond her understanding. And Mira too carried herself with a quiet dignity that no ordinary person could fake. That evening, the whispers in the neighborhood grew louder. Mrs. Brown told her husband that she had seen a decorated officer visiting the cabin. Mr. Lee told his children that the couple must be leaders or people of influence. Soon, almost everyone agreed that Ravi and Mira were no ordinary neighbors. Karen, however, could not accept it. She stormed into Mrs. Brown's yard, her voice sharp. You are all being fooled. Important or not, they have no right to change our rules. Do not forget, they built that gate without permission. Mrs. Brown looked at her kindly. Karen, rules are important, yes. But kindness and respect are greater. They bring peace here. Have you not noticed how everyone feels calmer around them? Karen's face turned red. For years, she had controlled this neighborhood with fear and complaints. Now, one couple with gentle smiles and calm voices was undoing all her power. That night, Karen sat in her chair staring out the window at the glowing cabin. Her hands shook as she whispered, "They are powerful. They are respected. But why here, why next to me? What are they planning?" Meanwhile, inside the cabin, Ravi placed a folder on the table and looked at Mira. It is time, he said quietly. They will know soon. But when the truth comes, it must not bring fear. It must bring trust. Mira touched his hand gently. Then let the truth come at its own pace. Those who doubt will learn. Those who fear will find peace. The gate outside stood tall under the silver moonlight. It had started as just wood and paint, but now it marked the boundary between past and present, secrecy and truth. And soon, that truth would shine brighter than Karen's suspicions could ever dim. The morning sun spilled golden light across the lake, painting the cabin yard with warmth. Ravi and Mira were sitting on the porch, enjoying tea and the quiet sounds of birds. The air was fresh, and the cabin felt more like home than ever. Karen, however, was pacing in her house across the road. She had stayed awake all night thinking about the visitors, the men in uniform, and the respect Ravi commanded. Her mind raced with questions. Who are they really? Why do they have so much power? Why here, next to me? Unable to bear the suspense any longer, she decided to confront them. She walked briskly across the road, her nerves tangled with fear and anger. She stopped at the gate and knocked firmly. Ravi opened the gate with a welcoming smile. Good morning, Karen. How are you today? Karen's words came out hurriedly. I need answers. Who are you really? What is all this? The men in suits, the respect. I have never seen anything like it. Ravi studied her calmly. Karen, we have lived quietly, hoping no one would feel threatened. But I understand your curiosity. You want to know the truth. Mira joined him, smiling softly. It is not easy to explain. But we did not come here to cause trouble or fear. We came for peace and to enjoy a simple life, just as we have always wanted. Karen's eyes widened. Peace? You call this peace? You command respect, people listen to you. You are not ordinary. Ravi nodded. That is true. I have served in a position where decisions affected many lives. Mira has worked in programs that help thousands of families. We carry responsibility wherever we go, but here, we only wanted a quiet place to live and care for our home. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She had expected arrogance or secrecy, but instead she saw humility. They had power, yes, but it was tempered with kindness. Mira spoke gently. We never wanted to show power. We never wanted to control anyone. Our goal is simple: help when we can, live with respect, and enjoy life with our loved ones. Karen felt her anger fading, replaced by awe and confusion. She had spent years trying to dominate the neighborhood, yet here were two people who wielded true influence without ever demanding it. Ravi stepped closer. Karen, I understand your concerns. You have a sense of responsibility for this neighborhood. That is admirable. But respect is earned through calm actions, not fear. You can choose to see that now. Karen looked down at her hands, feeling a mix of embarrassment and admiration. She had called the police, watched from behind bushes, and tried to assert control. And yet, here they were, gentle, kind, and undeniably important. Finally, she whispered, I am sorry. I acted out of fear and pride. I should have welcomed you instead of judging. Mira smiled. It takes courage to admit that. You have done well in the neighborhood, Karen. But sometimes, we all need to see the bigger picture. Ravi added, we are not here to change anyone's life unless invited. We simply live ours, quietly. And now, you know who we are. That knowledge can help you, or it can frighten you. The choice is yours. Karen nodded slowly. She felt a weight lifting from her chest. For the first time, she realized that true authority did not need to be loud or forceful. It came from actions, respect, and honesty. The neighbors, who had gathered at a distance to watch the morning scene, now understood as well. Ravi and Mira were not just a couple with a cabin, they were people of great wisdom and service, living simply and humbly. Karen returned home, feeling a mix of relief and humility. She knew her days of trying to control everyone through fear were over. From that day on, she chose a different path: observation with respect, not suspicion, and care without arrogance. Back at the cabin, Ravi and Mira stood by the gate, watching the lake shimmer in the morning light. The wooden gate, once just a small improvement, now symbolized something greater. It was a boundary not of fear, but of trust. Mira placed her hand in Ravi's. It is finally peaceful, she said softly. Ravi smiled, looking at the neighborhood across the road. Yes. Sometimes peace comes quietly, and the greatest lessons are learned by those willing to listen. The sun rose higher, spreading warmth over the cabin, the lake, and the small neighborhood. For the first time, everyone understood that strength could be gentle, power could be humble, and respect could shine brighter than fear ever could. Karen, standing at her window, nodded silently. She had learned the truth and it had changed her forever. The cabin gate remained, standing firm, welcoming, and wise. It had witnessed suspicion, curiosity, and revelation. Now, it stood as a symbol of harmony, trust, and understanding in the little neighborhood by the lake.